봐 Yeah first step踏んでるニューゾーンこんなドラムが鳴るここはミラーボールの王国背筋が続々ある意味危険地帯だがもちろん首振りゃ安全地帯銃口向けられた気分ギターのヘッドドラムの乱射ボードンいや待てない DJ は次のブツを用意 You ready 夜は待ってはくれない感性の放送
Good evening. This is the Dominance Academy, and I am Mr. Justin. Welcome. One second. For example, colon. I love to see the enthusiasm, but turn these into requests. Or rather say, I love the enthusiasm. Period. Not, I love to see the enthusiasm. So, yeah, just, it's alright. Guys looking for some last minute direction on what's going on. Uncle Guns, thank you for posting the links. Much appreciated. So, yeah, he is, Klein, he's getting much more comfortable with his dominant presence and his communication, just being straightforward, assertive, and, you know, it's really good seeing his transition and his comfort within himself. And so his girl is getting really, how do I say this? His girl is getting very, like, charged, let's say, by the way he's become. And so her hunger, right? Her enthusiastic, submissive hunger is coming out. She's being more comfortable because he is. And but without proper training, it just kind of comes out. And he was like, or she was saying, oh, I want to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, like, I'm going to, like, do this to you sexually, and then, you know, what was it, like, make you some food or whatever, serve it to you in bed. I don't know what she was saying. And so I was like, look, you know, you need to first acknowledge her state, acknowledge her enthusiasm and her proactiveness of, like, just her expression, right? Her expressions aren't wrong. It's just presented incorrectly. So I was like, listen, just acknowledge the state, right? Because the state is good, okay? But it should be presented in a, you know, more properly submissive dictation. So I said, acknowledge the mood and then tell her to clean it up, right? Change it from a, you know, from her saying, this is what I'm going to do, and into a question, into a request, and saying, may I do this XYZ sexually? May I cook you a meal afterwards? May I serve it to you in bed? And then complete it with a, you know, the given title. So, like, may I do XYZ in bed, daddy, or sir, right? May I afterwards make you a nice meal and present it to you in bed, sir or daddy? It just makes things cleaner, nicer, more presentable, puts her further into that state. And, you know, I think these, you know, it just kind of adds to the entire narrative. And not only does it help her when he directs her in this way and she starts assuming a clearer sense of that role, then he also gets pulled into his, right? So when the proper formats are used on both sides, it sharpens both edges of the sword. And, so it sets both people into the right mindset. And I think this is incredibly important. Yep. Oh. I would also remind her to end each of her requests or statements with your title. So if she's already comfortable with using daddy, which I think she is, have her do that and remind her to do so. Yep. You'd be surprised like what good things can come about by using clear and direct communication. Just clearly stating, this is what I believe is proper, this is what I want, that sort of stuff. It's super beneficial. And so many people, they just kind of skirt around the issue, like he was doing that, like even just simple stuff. And part of him was just being really hesitant and unsure because he was projecting his thoughts about what he thought she would react as. He, like, not her real reactions, because how could he possibly know? But he was sort of projecting into her and trying to be one step ahead of her emotions out of fear. And then that would actually cause his actions to be in such a way that would actually cause the reactions in her that he was trying to avoid by being in her head. What's that line from Kung Fu Panda, right, that I reference sometimes, where Shifu and Oogway, the turtle, they were under the tree and they were talking about Po, and he said, Oogway, Shifu was trying his best to make it terrible for Po at the temple, making him want to leave, and that only just made him want to stay more and try harder. And Oogway was laughing at Shifu, and he said, many times we meet the destiny along the path that we choose to avoid it, something along those lines. And so the harder you try to prevent the thing that you're seeking with the woman, you actually create that more likely to happen, or you make that more likely to happen. Very interesting thing. Use capitalization always. Even when talking to me or about yourself. Yeah. So he's talking about daddy, and I said, listen, whenever you use your title, put it in capitalization. Just like when you say the word president, like it's always put with a capital P. So if your title is daddy or sir or lord or whatever it is, always use capitals. I'm even in the habit of talking about myself, in the third person sometimes, depending on the context. It's not often that I say I. And, in my sub, I don't refer to her in the first person either. I don't think she's even ever heard me say her name that she was born with. Maybe I should give that to her as like a little treat. But yeah, it's always just a title. Sub, this girl, my moon. There's a number of like titles, agreed upon titles. But the thing is, kind of going back to the student here, as it relates to the title, is that you're creating the mirror. Like her submission is a mirror. So that means whatever you're setting up for her to reflect off of is what you're likely going to get. And so that has to do with what you're certain about and what you're uncertain about. And this will no doubt radiate to her, and she will bring it back to you either consciously or unconsciously. And there's going to be a ton of it that is unconscious, a ton. And some of it she will be conscious of, but that will be mostly out of like mood Like she doesn't like how it feels or whatever. It's going to be rare where she's like, oh, I'm going to consciously react in a certain way out of like reasoning to teach him a lesson. That's not often the case, especially for a girl who is inclined towards submission. But she will do this based on her mood and subconsciously, as like subconscious instinctual reactions. That's what will happen. So keep that in mind, right? We usually create the things in our lives that we benefit from and suffer from. So I wanted to discuss with you guys more about this mirror, and once again read to you something that was created for this show, and as a means of getting you guys more familiar with really what's going on, like why this is the case. And it may not even be super important for you to understand the why. Just know that it is the case. And I think that part of the benefits, or part of the great things that you get to experience with women happens after you accept their nature, after you accept just what they are and what they're capable of. And everything gets a lot easier from that point. And it's not accepting it through bitterness or criticism or analysis or judgment. It's just accepting. It's a mature aspect, like when you're watching a nature show, and some people will see, like a bobcat in the winter, like chasing down a jackrabbit, and it captures it and, bites it, snaps its neck, and then just tears it apart. And some people will look at that and go, oh, like, what a poor little animal, And then other people will be like, yeah, but, that bobcat needs to like feed its family. And, they put all these narratives and feelings and things like that, instead of just looking at it plainly with no dialogue whatsoever. Like no dialogue, just observing what is. It's a bobcat hunting a jackrabbit. That's it. It's just doing what it does. And sometimes the bobcat catches it, and sometimes it doesn't, and the jackrabbit runs away. That's just what it is. It's the ebb and flow of nature. So this is like when you get to a mature position, you're able to just observe women in this way, just as they are, without a narrative of defense, or pushing yourself into this place of acceptance, or creating other narratives. No criticism or judgment, and things get a lot easier. Now I realize it's easier said than done for a lot of you, but what does help is stopping the narratives coming at you. And so that means stop watching bullshit like whatever podcast, stop watching Fresh and Fit or any other kind of show that criticizes, judges, and analyzes women, because that's just narratives that your conscious and your subconscious are absorbing. And it's like, for what? How is this benefiting your life? How is this making you a better man? All it is just filling up your head with junk food. That's all it is. It's just junk food. So just as you have to watch your diet, like your literal diet, you also have to watch the diet of your mind, because these eventually start to create beliefs. And what you believe is what you perceive. And then what you perceive starts changing your choices and your behaviors, which then change your habits. And it starts a cycle, because then those habits start creating certain beliefs, which then create certain perceptions, which start changing your making differences in your choices and your habits. And it becomes this really bad cycle. So really watch your mental diet, watch your auditory diet, your visual diet. It's very important, okay? So let's see what we got here. Submission is the mirror. What she reflects is only what you radiate. A woman's submission is not a switch that you flip. It's not a technique you perform. It's not a script that you recite. Submission is a mirror, the deepest, most unforgiving mirror in a man's life. And what she reflects is not only what you radiate. Men who don't like what the mirror shows always blame the mirror. Men who understand polarity look into the reflection and say, good, now I know what must be strengthened. And that's where we begin. So what submission actually is. People talk about submission like it's a behavior: kneeling, obedience, devotion, sexual openness, softness, and so on. And yes, those things are manifestations, but they're not the essence. Submission is a reaction. It's a response. It's a reflection. It's the woman's nervous system and emotional body reorganizing itself around a man's presence. When she submits, she isn't playing a role. Her entire internal universe shifts towards receptivity. That does not happen because you ask for it. It does not happen because you demand it. It does not happen because you call yourself a dom. It happens because you radiate qualities that her body trusts, and because she feels safer yielding to your gravity than remaining in her own. The mirror never lies. The woman doesn't submit to you. She submits to what you are. A woman does not surrender to personality. She doesn't surrender to promises. She doesn't surrender to the idea of who you might become in 6 months. She surrenders to the man she senses in front of her. Your posture, your breath, your tone, your decisiveness, your boundaries, your emotional clarity, your consistency, your unshakable identity. Those are what hit her nervous system. Her submission is simply her body saying, I recognize the stronger pull. I recognize the direction. I recognize the stability. If you are inconsistent, she will reflect that with inconsistency. If you are unclear, she will reflect that with confusion. If you are reactive, she will reflect that with emotional volatility. You never escape the mirror. Well, unless you don't play with one at all. The 3 energies you radiate and the 3 reflections that they create. So your presence to her softness. A woman becomes soft not only when a man becomes present, not intense, not performative, present. If your attention is fragmented, she becomes guarded. If you are in her head, she becomes in her defenses. If you are in your head, she becomes in her defenses. If you are anxious, she becomes unpredictable. Softness happens when your presence convinces her she no longer has to manage the space. Presence says, I'm here, I'm leading, nothing needs to be protected. And her softness is just the mirror answering back. Your direction to her obedience. Obedience is not about power over her. It's about clarity within you. Women follow men who are going somewhere, not men who are waiting to be told what direction to choose. And that's both internally and externally. If you hesitate, she hesitates. If you choose weakly, she questions. If you're unsure of who you are, she becomes unsure of how to behave around you. Direction radiates certainty. And certainty is the fuel that her obedience runs on. She isn't obeying the man. She's obeying the direction the man embodies. And third, your integrity to her trust. So trust is the nervous system's final verdict. Integrity is not moral virtue. It is internal alignment. When your words match your actions, your boundaries match your consequences, your desires match your behavior. Woman's entire emotional system relaxes then. If you lack alignment, she will test you, but not because she's defiant, but because the mirror can only reflect what it sees. If your energy is fractured, her trust is fractured. If your integrity is intact, her submission deepens. You don't earn her trust. You make it unavoidable. And then there's the myth of training a woman to submit. And every beginner dom believes he can train a woman to submit. The experienced man knows he can only train himself to be the kind of man a woman voluntarily submits to. Without the internal shift in you, the rituals are shallow and theatrical. With the internal shift in you, even a whisper can make her melt. She does not follow rules because rules exist. She follows rules because your presence makes obedience feel natural. This is why technique without embodiment always collapses. Words don't make her yield, presence does. Punishments don't make her yield, trust does. Commands don't make her yield, depth does. There's no shortcut. The nervous system, logic behind the mirror. This isn't mystical, it's biological. A woman's submission is a nervous system response to safety plus polarity. She needs two things simultaneously. Safety, not emotional comfort, but the safety of this man is in control of himself so I can release control. And polarity, the sense of this man is directing the energy and I can surrender into it. Safety without polarity makes her trust you but not submit. Polarity without safety makes her lust for you but resists surrender. So this is the nice guy, bad boy dichotomy. When both exist, the mirror activates. What she shows you is the emotional truth of what your energy created inside her. If her submission collapses, it means your energy collapsed first. If her devotion deepens, it means yours became unmistakable. A woman's submission is a live diagnostic of your masculine integrity. So how a woman reveals a man's weakest edges. If you want to see a man's insecurities, look at how his woman behaves around him. If she is chaotic, he is directionless. If she is closed, he is ungrounded. If she is anxious, he is inconsistent. If she is dominant, he is passive. If she is disrespectful, he has no boundaries. If she is controlling, he is indecisive. This is why one woman can be submissive with one man and resistant with another. Same woman, two different mirrors. The reflection reveals the man, always. So in order to achieve this, these are the three internal shifts every dominant must make, every man must make. From reaction to direction, stop responding to her moods, and create the emotional tone. From expression to embodiment, this is the second one. Stop telling her who you are. Show her with your energy, your pacing, your decisiveness, your stillness. And then from needing her submission to inspiring it by being unavoidable. When you radiate strength, steadiness, and depth, her submission becomes like gravity. She doesn't choose it, she falls into it. But here's really like how most men fail when they're trying to create this. They try to get the woman to submit instead of becoming the man she naturally submits to. You don't chase submission, you cultivate radiance. So what does this look like? Speak more slowly. Your pacing signals power. Maintain eye contact longer, not aggressively, but steadily. Lead without permission, not forcefully, just firmly. Be the emotional thermostat, not reacting but setting the tone. Enforce boundaries early, without anger and without apology. Know what you want. Don't be vague, be specific. Follow through with discipline, not occasionally, but ruthlessly. Stay calm in her storms. Calm is the crown of men. A woman's submission is not inspired by intensity, but by consistency. Intensity seduces her. Consistency keeps her. So this is the evolution of a woman's submission as your radiance grows. When you shift, she shifts. Every stage reveals a deeper mirror. So the first stage is testing. She pushes, questions, resists, maybe is playful. She's trying to see if your radiance is real or temporary. Stage 2 is the softening. Your presence becomes something she can lean into. Her body starts relaxing around your energy. Stage 3 is obedience. She begins following your lead naturally, not because you told her to, but because you've become her home. You've become trustworthy. And then stage 4, devotional submission. This is the point where she doesn't reflect your actions. She reflects your essence. She moves like she's an extension of your will. Her erotic surrender matches your depth. Her obedience becomes emotional nourishment. Her desire reorganizes itself around you. And all of that is the mirror. So you want to change a woman? Change the man that she reflects. So the last part here, what you radiate is the law of the relationship. A woman's submission isn't a gift. It's a reaction to the truth of who you are. If you want her to kneel, you kneel first, not in front of her, but before your own discipline, before your codes, before your principles, and before your rules. If you want her to obey, obey your mission. If you want her trust, you become immovable. If you want her to yield, you must master yourself. What she reflects is only what you radiate. This is the law. It always has been and always will be. It's a law of the universe. The mirror cannot lie, but it can guide. If you study her, you will learn yourself. If you refine yourself, you will transform her. And that is the true power of a dominant man. Hey there, little one. Good to see you. So I hope that was eye-opening. I hope that made sense to a lot of you, if not all of you. I don't think that was like too far out there. I think like just one of the biggest issues amongst young men is just not understanding like, well, if I want to do that, how do I begin? Like, what do I do first? You know? And I think one of the first things really is learning to be honest with yourself. This is the biggest hurdle. Like I say, the path of man is paved in bricks of honesty. And those must be toward yourself, first and foremost. And once you start along this path, you will not believe how much smoke you blow up your own ass. It will be astounding. And like, you'll feel bad. Like, you'll feel guilty. You'll feel shame. Let it happen, because that's your higher self being like, you've been an idiot for a long time to yourself, trying to fool other people, trying to fool yourself. For what? For what? So that you can feel better about who you are, but not actually make any changes? That's silly. That's worthless energy expenditure. And men with a capital M are very much aware of the economy of things, the economy of thought, the economy of speech, the economy of motion, economy of everything. Because we're not wasteful. We're not wasteful with our words, our thoughts, our actions, our feelings, our energy, our sex, nothing. So we must be honest. We must be truthful with ourselves. And yeah, if there's a bit of harm involved, you have to roll with it, because that's part of growth. There isn't a single thing that has growth involved that does not include discomfort. I mean, even a seed that's growing has to push through a hard shell. It has to rip it apart. A baby chick has to push through the shell of an egg in order to get out. And it doesn't look easy. Those baby turtles, they come out, they've got a greater chance of dying than living. You know, when they're like born on the sand and they have to kind of like rush their asses to the water, those sea turtles, It's like, what, like 10% actually survive? But a lot of guys are like, nah, I can see that discomfort. I see that pain. I'm staying in the hole, like indefinitely, or as long as I possibly can. I'm too scared to run to the water, right? And I'm going to tell myself stories like I'm too cool for that, right? I'm too cool for that. I'm going to create narratives to myself so that I can feel more comfortable. And then I'm going to start telling other people narratives. I'm going to tell people how cool I am. I'm going to tell people how successful I am. I'm going to tell people all the things that I have in life, the things that I've achieved, how many people like me or approve of me, how many women I've fucked, right? All that is in an effort to cover up the lie that you're like, first of all, like you don't have those things and you feel bad about it. You're judging yourself. You don't like yourself. And you don't want to just plainly look at things. Because plainly looking at things doesn't even involve the judgment. It's just looking at what is. Because even the sadness and the guilt and the shame, that's a narrative as well. It's not being objective. It's not being clear. It's not seeing things just plainly as they are. And this is how you begin. All that stuff that I read about becoming the mirror, the self has to be defined, clear, so that what gets reflected back to you is also clear. So as you become more refined, as just a clear representation of yourself as a man, it also starts defining the clarity of the mirror. It becomes more polished. Its edges become more refined. The frame gets more refined. And then once you realize that, now you become more or less like a director and a creator of the thing that's reflecting. So it's like, if I want her to behave in a certain way, if I want her to show up in a certain way, part of that has to do with my own refinement of how I'm cultivating myself. And it can't be done through lies, right? Because mine can't be upheld indefinitely. You cannot uphold a lie indefinitely. Eventually, truth will come, and then she will fall apart. She will not reflect. Even if you do such a good lie, that will not be a real reflection. And you will know it. Your ego will know it. You'll know that none of it is real. Because you don't trust yourself. You don't believe in yourself. You don't like yourself. Right? And what's interesting is that you can say, this is okay. This is okay that I don't like myself right now. But you don't have to go into a pit of despair. You can go into, like my other recent video, it's intention versus strategy. Start making strategies, looking at things plainly. How can I sort this out? But a lot of times, guys will go into their emotion. They'll feel bad. They'll feel guilty. They'll feel angry. Part of them will want to be saved from whatever sort of suffering that they think they have. They're looking for, a lot of times, a woman to build them up, to make them better. And the funny thing is that once you follow the things that I'm talking about from that piece that I just read, they actually do. But they don't if you start looking for it. If you start looking for her to build you up, she will not build you up. You will be a burden. She will treat you like a child. And what pussy gets wet over a child? Right? That's not cool. So, but when you do the things that I'm talking about, she actually does pour back in. She wants to, right? Because you don't need her to. And so she wants to be part of whatever it is. Because your form is becoming more defined, it's becoming more dense, more opaque, and not this transparent ghost facade of something that you're trying to convince her of. You actually are that thing. With the reduction of doubt, with the reduction of fear, self-judgment, self-criticism, shame, guilt, pain, anger, letting all that stuff go. This allows you to actually settle down and become more solid. But it requires looking at these things. You can't let go of something that you don't know its existence of. You have to know what it is before you let it go. Okay? Picasso said, you must know the rules before you break them. He was actually a very accomplished realist painter before he became the cubist. You must know what is before you create in something else. So that also includes your scars, your wounds, your darkness. Because then that allows her to accept her scars, wounds, and darkness. And then also let them go. You'd be surprised at how much of the identity gets formed around the narratives that you create. Both in the ego of saying, oh, I'm like this is who I am. That is adjusted and mutated by the stories that are then created as coping mechanisms from the difficulties of your past. Be it like challenges, difficulties, pain, trauma, fear, conditioning, whatever. Okay? These things, because they don't feel good to the ego, they're transformed. A narrative is spoken, right? So like, let's say for instance, there's a parent who they had anger problems, maybe drinking problems. Dad would come home and just beat the snot out of you. And he would say, this is for your own good. And because it would be just too fucking painful to sit there and go, that treatment was awful. I hated being beaten by my dad. I felt so unloved. It hurt, like emotionally and physically. I did not feel loved at all. So instead of that reality, because that turns into anger, that turns into treachery, that turns into pushing dad away and saying, I don't like you because of that behavior. Why did you treat me that way? Like just a very objective, clear thing, right? A narrative gets spun and says, you know what? It was for my own good. You know what? I did deserve that. You know what? I was a bad kid. When the truth is, you just weren't being led properly. It could even be flipped to, well, that was his way of showing me that he loved me. Okay? It's like Stockholm syndrome. Sort of. But these are the narratives that get from that narrative, it gets turned into an identity. It gets part of it. All right? This starts coming together as part of the identity. And then that narrative just continues onward. And then that becomes the thing that she reflects. These narratives based off of ego protection, pain coping, anger coping, fear coping, just all these copes just kind of like amalgamated together. You ever see like one of those, sorry, excuse me. Like you ever see one of those stones where you like pick it up and it has like a bunch of different things in it? You see like little pebbles and different shapes, maybe tiny seashells, and it just kind of like all like mashed together into this one rock. That's an amalgamation. And that's kind of what happens to a lot of people's identities. And because it's just you're with it all the time, you're like, hey, this is who I am. because it's been this way for so long. Okay? And that's what she's going to reflect. And the thing is that we haven't even begun to look at hers. All right? But a lot of times guys will, because they're coming from still from those activated places, the places of being out of alignment, their soul being out of alignment, their minds, their emotions, all these things being out of alignment, which actually can cause physical out of alignments, right? Curved spine, organs being not functioning properly, joint issues, all sorts of health ailments can occur because your mind and your heart are out of alignment. Right? The stress has to go somewhere. Okay? So it can feed right into our body. And so from that position, they're looking at her. And this is where you see a lot of these guys, especially like in the red pill space, which is falling apart, by the way. Thank God. Okay? So many creators are distancing themselves from that because it's just become a haven for crazy people. It always has been. Well, not always. In the very beginnings, before it even had a name, it was fine. But once those fucking crazy incels got in there, just infested and just created a cancer and then invited more and more. Now it's a mess. It's a seething mess. A stinking dumpster fire. And that's really what had happened. But they're those guys, right? These misaligned, anger-filled, fear-filled guys are then looking at her misalignment and criticizing it, trying to take it apart, looking at the holes, looking at the faults, and saying, look at how fucked up they are. And thinking that's doing something. It's doing nothing. All that is just projection, trying to, release some pressure from the valve of what really is a matter of self-hate. That's really all that is. And this is just not the way. This is not the path of men. And then all the while they will say, I'm a man. Sure you are, buddy. Who is following you? Who is lining up to get behind you? Besides more guys like you. No one. It's a reflection. And guys will say, well, I'm not being followed because they're so fucked up. No, they're not following because you're not reflecting anything. What you reflect is out of focus. It looks like a fucking, it looks like a Picasso painting. You ever see Picasso's paintings of figures? All these like weird, like disjointed shapes and things like that. And it looks human. Like you can be like, okay, yeah, that's like a humanoid shape. It looks sort of like a person, like a symbol of a person. It can make out a head and limbs and a torso and things like that. But it's not a man, right? It's disjointed. It's fractured, it's abstracted. And this is how men are showing up. So this is what the reflection they get. Disjointed, fractured. And they can't, like, no, I can't believe that. No, it's not me. They're fucked up. No, you're fucked up. That's the plain, simple, objective, easy truth. You're fucked up. It's like, yeah, but it's because of them. No, it's because of you. If you are grown, you no longer have the privilege that a child has and saying it was mommy's fault, it was daddy's fault. Sure, they might have had something to do with it, for real. But if at your grown age you haven't done anything about it, now it's your fault. If your room is a mess because your parents never showed you how to clean your room. At your grown age, you can no longer say, hey, I'm 30 years old, I've got a fucking messy room, but that's my mom's fault for never showing me how to clean up after myself. Are you fucking kidding me? Clean up after yourself. Clean up your freaking room. Right? Obviously, we're talking about your mind. We're talking about your heart. We're talking about your body. The cleanness of your soul. Right? And it hasn't anything to do with pledging your allegiance to some deity. You clean it up by being honest and facing the darkness that's in there because of that. That's how you start. You know, and after you go through this for a little while, it doesn't like sustain itself as this like discomfort and things like that. It's not like that at all, right? It's not this just ongoing discomfort. Okay, there's an ebb and a flow. All right. So you'll get to points where you're comfortable with sitting in a certain level of truth. And then, as I mentioned, that graph, you know, the graph of progression, I should make or find a copy of that and show you guys. But as your awareness then grows, it goes beyond your current state or skill set. And then you realize you've got work to do. And you're like, fuck. And you start seeing yourself even more clearly than you did before. And you say, oh, looks like I've got more work to do. And you keep going. Okay? But this is what is inspiring to her. Because this shows the steadiness. This shows your groundedness. Uncle Guns, absolutely correct. Once the black pill doomers began to symbiote with the red pill, it was a matter of time. Thanks Zeus indeed. Or thanks Zeus indeed, sorry. Yes. Yeah, it's I'm glad that it is just dissolving from within. Yep. Gerard, red pill space is like a beer bug virus, fear-mongering, brainwashing propaganda. These guys are not in tune with themselves. Yep, not at all. And I think this is really what a lot of guys are waking up to, where they're like, they get into it, right? There's natural concerns, right? Of, you know, any guy that just like, well, that's an unknown to me. I want to figure out. So it's less unknown. All right. And so you get there and you hear all these narratives of like, certain truths and certain things that you want to avoid. Cool. Okay. And then it just keeps cycling. Okay. Certain truths that are, maybe uncomfortable or create a certain sense of wariness, and certain things that are uncomfortable. And it just keeps cycling over and over and over and over and over and over. Just the same fucking talking points for years, just year after year, just churning and churning. Okay. And I think after a while, guys sat there and said, well, fuck, I'm actually in the same place that I was when I first entered. I might actually be even more wary and more scared and more angry and more frustrated than I was before. There's been no, like the cost benefit ratio here is way out of whack. Like, what's the benefit of, red pill stuff, black pill stuff? What's the benefit? All I've ever seen was just greater frustration and greater anger. Yeah. And maybe even intensified neediness, which is what brought them there to seek answers for anyways. But it never brought truth. What it says is like, I'm giving you truth about women. Okay? That's really like the backbone of most red pill books and channels and videos and shit like that. It's like truth about women. And the biggest truth is ignored, which is the truth of you. All they say was, you know, work out. Maybe they might say go to therapy. Maybe. I don't know. But they're like, work out, get your money up. But if you do, watch out because she's going to take you for everything. You know, divorce court is, you know, weighted, you know, to support women. So don't get married. It's like, well, then why am I amassing all this shit? Like, you're telling me to amass all this shit, but then it makes me into a target. Like, if I want girls, then I need to have these things. But if I get the girls, then they're going to take my things. It's like, make up your fucking mind. Which are you more scared of? Oh, yeah. That's one of the worst ones. She's not yours. It's just your turn. It really pisses me off. Self-defeating. Real men are indifferent and in tune with themselves. Sure. Like, they don't realize that red pill is just, it's just this intensified focus on women. So you take these guys who are already focused on women, trying to figure them out, hurt or annoyed, frustrated, maybe even angry, and then just intensified those things. And it brought them no closer to what they were actually desiring, which is actually female companionship in one shape or form. Not one bit closer to that. It just kept them into an ever deepening pit of frustration and anger. And because there were so many together in it, it felt like they were doing something. Like, this is constructive work. We are doing God's work. You are doing fuck all, except burying yourself deeper in your own private little hole. Again, narratives. Again, watch what goes in your ears, your eyes, into your mind. It all makes a difference. Most of them are in no better place because of whatever pill they've been sucking on. No better place. Because the truth of the matter is, the real truth that was rarely ever talked about is just your path. And the fact that they said, like, oh, just kind of like work out and work on your career. Well, that doesn't do anything, actually. Like, sure, those things are great for, like, the world. Like, sure, be healthy and have a healthy career. Great. Okay. That does not make you a man. That does not examine your shadow. That does not examine your attachments, your narratives, your beliefs, your perceptions, your pain, your anger. It does not localize or untangle any of these things. It does not address anything. You think because you've become fit or have established a career that your problems with yourself and women are magically going to go away? The problems that you've had with your mother and your father are just going to go away? Or whatever, sort of influential, caregiver was in your life? No. Those things are with you like a big fucking heavy backpack. And they will continue to affect how you move, regardless of how much money you have, how well known you are, how fit your body is. It doesn't change it. Otherwise, we'd be seeing people who are fit and rich and famous having a lot of peace and happiness. But celebrity after celebrity, sports hero after sports hero, nope. They're just on their bullshit, just like they were before they were, super fit or super rich, super famous, whatever. Because your past doesn't go anywhere. You cannot just sever it or pretend that it's not there simply because you've bought yourself a bigger home. It's with you all the time. And it just takes work, very specific kind of work that can't be solved in the gym. It's very specific work. Sure, exercising can absolutely take the edge off. It can make you feel better, right? Endorphins, dopamine, all that good stuff. Improve circulation, sleep, stress, all those things, they're fantastic, all right? I do think that everybody should exercise, but it's not going to untangle the mess in your subconscious, which will alter your perceptions, it will alter your beliefs, it will alter your choices, your habits, your behaviors. The gym doesn't address those things. Neither does a stack of cash. Well, the stack of cash can hire you a mentor or a therapist, but by itself, it does nothing for you in this regard. And to get out of this mess that you've been holding on to for years, it's one of the greatest treasures you will ever discover. One of the greatest things you'll ever create in your life. Because there is nothing tastier than not feeling, well, just about anything inside. Just relaxation. And people at home, I guess you're not feeling happy. No, I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I'm not sad. I'm not frustrated. I'm not angry. I'm not tense. It's just neutrality. Just relaxed neutrality. I can move into any emotion, but my baseline, it always just comes right back to just relaxed neutrality. And there is no greater thing on earth than that. You could give me a bunch of money. It'd be great to have a bunch of money, but it doesn't make it better than this state. You can give me a bunch of pussy. Doesn't make it better than this state. Because what we're talking about here is freedom. You cannot put a price on freedom. I give you $10 million, but you're going to be a prisoner for the rest of your life. You're going to feel like a sense of tension and discomfort inside that never goes away, ever. But you get 10 million. You never feel a sense of calm ever until you die. Some people might take that. I wouldn't. Not a million years. Because that means that I'm never actually living within myself. I'm never actually here. I'm never actually showing up as a man with both feet planted on the ground. I'm constantly in this micro state of coping, which then turns into macro states of coping. Drinking, shit like that. Drugs, other distractions, right? To deal with the copes. Coping to deal with the coping, to deal with the narratives that are hiding the pain, right? No, I'd rather be free. I'd much rather be free. And this is quite possibly one of the most powerful places you can be as a man. One of the most powerful states that you can be in. And for a woman to be near this, oh, that makes her feel so safe. Especially if she's experienced other men, like a number of other men, because it's not common. This is not common at all, because you actually have to create it. You have to cultivate it, right? You have like de-weeding a garden, de-weeding and then planting what you want in there. I was actually earlier tonight having a conversation with a friend of mine about this, but it wasn't about manhood, right? It was actually something that they were going through that wasn't having to do with this. And they were telling me about like their therapy sessions and things like that, and the pathways of self-discovery they were going through. very good therapist, I would think. And I said, wow, that sounds exactly like the pathways that I bring my students through. Because you can't actually start dealing with life, and women are part of life, okay? If who is dealing with life and them, women, as some sort of like weird like suits that you've put on, series of jackets and costumes and things like that. This weird memory popped into my head from that. When I was a kid, my best friend Jonathan, right? He and I were like two peas in a pod, and we had this game that we used to play. We were both latchkey kids, right? So I don't know why that was a term back in the 80s and early 90s, but it was like for kids whose parents were just like working all the time, you know, and we were just like on our own. So we would just hang out. And one of the games that we came up to play, I don't know why, but he called it Fanny. No idea why. And the goal was to put on as many layers of clothing as you possibly could. You know, and eventually we were like grabbing his brother's clothing because they were big enough to fit over the layers. It was just these giant, like, Stay Puft Marshmallow Men. And like, that's kind of like what guys are doing. Like, they just got these layers of costume, you know? And then how do you think I could genuinely, wearing all that, truly engage well, right? Imagine if I did the same thing with gloves and shoes, right? Like multiple pairs of shoes, shoes within shoes, gloves within gloves, shirts, pants, multiple layers of these things. Imagine how difficult it would be to engage. You could, but it'd be clumsy and it wouldn't be authentic because I'm not actually touching anything, right? So you have to start being honest. You have to start taking off the bullshit and getting honest with yourself. That's the beginnings. And this eventually brings about that stillness. It brings about the clarity. When you start accepting what is, not placing blame, right? Sure, maybe you had a shitty fucking father. Maybe you had a shitty mother. Or maybe nobody was there at all. Maybe you grew up in a group home. I don't know. But you can't change the past. And getting angry with it, getting sad about it, it sucks. Yeah, you can acknowledge that. It's safe to acknowledge shitty things in life. But to stay there, to sink your hooks into it, and just hold it in, does nothing. It actually slows you the fuck down. And that's the child inside saying, I need a savior. I would love somebody to just fix this for me. Unfortunately, it's never going to happen. The only fixing that's possible is acceptance and then letting go of the emotions that you've harbored around that thing. And this is what allows you to grow beyond the emotional stagnation that happened around that thing, whatever that event was or series of events. And then you can start actually maturing as a man. Like you hear women saying, like, I was dating this man baby, right? I've heard women talk about this, man baby. Because you've got a grown body of a man, but he has the emotional development of 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old, or wherever that problem happened in his past that he never actually grew out of. Of no fault of his own, because we can't blame people for their ignorance. That's not a legitimate blame. Okay? But once these things are brought to light, yes, now they are at fault. You can't be faulted for not knowing, but once you know, nope, you get no passes. You get no passes, and you'll know if you're lying to yourself about not knowing. You can't play that card against yourself. Well, I just didn't know. I don't know. You know that you need to sort your shit out. You know there's pathways to it. It's this 21st century. There's books. There's mentors. There's therapists. There's coaches. There's religious leaders, if that works for you. There's so many pathways. Shit, even like certain drug use can do this if done right with the right guide. Like mescaline, peyote, ayahuasca, Cambo, these like heavy psychedelic type drugs. Unfortunately, those things don't last, but it can really, if you're courageous, it can really bring you to truth really fucking quick. Really quick. It's like doing like years worth of therapy within moments. Yeah, they're intense. I've only done LSD. I've never done mescaline or peyote or any of these like other like heavier psychedelics. LSD is pretty heavy, but none of these other ones. Long ago I was seeing this girl. She was a witch type chick, like crystal rubbing type girl, and she wanted to take Cambo and invited me to do it. And she was like visiting in New York, and there was this witch doctor from South America who was visiting. Like, she's like a really famous witch doctor, and she had brought Cambo with her. And Cambo is like this secretion from a very specific frog in the Amazon. And what they do is they capture the frog, and like with a wooden like tongue depressor, I've seen them, they kind of scrape the back of these toads or these frogs, and they kind of like wipe it off into a container, and they collect it, right? And then what they'll do is they'll open your skin, oftentimes with like a hot ember. Like if you take like a long stick and hold it into a fire, get it red hot, kind of blow the flame out, and it's got this cherry on the end, and they'll burn your skin to kind of open a little wound, and then they'll take that poison, just a little scoop of it, and then rub it onto the open wound. Okay. And makes you trip the fuck out, makes your face swell. Like there's this whole thing about frogs, and like you basically like look like a frog. It's weird. And apparently you vomit, and the vomit is like bright green. Sometimes you are explosive out your rear end as well. And this is like in a group setting, right? So there's a bunch of people like just hanging out, like puking and shitting all over the place. Buckets were involved. And then you trip the fuck out for I don't know how many hours. Okay. And she was like, let's do this. And she was describing it to me. I was like watching videos on YouTube. I'm like, this doesn't sound fun at all. Like, I'm not fucking doing that shit. And then spending all the next day in like recovering from all that. It's like, no, whatever. I've eaten enough acid. I know what the fuck's going on. I've seen the mothership. It's cool. I don't feel like barfing and shitting myself for hours. Yeah. But anyways, my point is that there's many pathways to truth. It's just about starting, like making your way through it. And that's the interesting thing about truth, is that you can find it in so many ways. Like the Buddhists, they'll say, oh, you can find enlightenment washing dishes, because that's just how it works. If just your mind is in the right place. But you got to stop thinking about these women. Like you really do. When you put so much less thought towards them, you can actually put thought towards them. Like actual useful constructive thought that turns into words or actions that changes their behavior can create a dynamic that is conducive to everybody involved. Like it really is. Like that's the best way, And like guys that just so caught up in trying to sort out something that doesn't need sorting out. That it's the irony. You stop trying to sort them out, and they become sorted out because your form becomes more solid, more clear, more dense, and then they kind of sort themselves out because they become a reflection of that certainty, of that conviction, right? Of that calm self-belief, not the boastful sort of self-belief, right? The calm, convicted type self-belief. The stone that's beneath the castle, right? It doesn't shout. It just is. And it's the most powerful part of the entire building. So, like, this is, and then the castle reflects that strength. What is a castle without the foundation beneath it? Yeah. So what is the woman but the reflection of her man? So if she's like being irate, it's because he allows it. If she's being disrespectful, because, well, is he something to respect? If she thought so, then she wouldn't behave that way. You know, and like I was reading in part of it, this is why you can see a woman treat one guy one way and another guy another way, because she's reflecting all of these surfaces. It doesn't mean that she's a disrespectful person. It just means that women are mutable. They're flexible. And that's what makes them great. This is what actually allows them to be submissive. But it also makes them challenging for those that don't understand the polarity that's in nature. It's all around us. All the truths are right around us. The river takes form of the riverbed. There's always that give and take of everything. Everything is in balance. Everything is in flow. It's just when we get into these narratives and these beliefs that aren't in alignment with nature, then things get out of whack. And, you know, you can start talking and preaching till you're blue in the face about how things are out of alignment in society and how women are out of alignment. And who knows, like, maybe you're right. Maybe all of that's true. Sure. Okay. But you can't do anything about it. Like all these guys on their soapboxes, talking about this, talking about that. Okay. Criticizing this and that. Okay. Let's say you're right. Does it change anything? No. What if all those guys on soapboxes are 100% correct about women? Does that change women? Nope. Women need to have accountability. It's their kryptonite. I don't know. Is my little shit in here still? She can tell me. Is accountability your kryptonite? I don't know. She's probably busy right now. But no. Because when a woman has like assimilated to your will, okay, and honesty, which is, you know, which is the brother, the sibling of accountability, or you can't have accountability without honesty, and vice versa, okay, they're siblings, and you're living this way, this is your framing, all right, this is just your reality, this is how you exist, then she cannot exist within that without being part of it. Your certainty allows her to soften, right? Your container allows her to become more liquid. So if part of that container has to do with truth, honesty, integrity, accountability, to yourself first, primarily, foremost, 1000%, first, about you, to yourself, and she is softening and becoming part of your container, then there's no question about accountability. She just will become accountable, because that's just how everything is in here, in this vessel. That's how things are. So she's just going to blend into that. If she's not, it's either the wrong kind of vessel for her, or it feels like paper mache. You look like a vessel, but it's really just newspaper, water, and flour, trying to hold itself together, wishing that she doesn't notice. Right? But what happens when you put water on paper mache? When a liquid gets put on paper mache, it dissolves. and then the liquid makes a mess. Right? You can't make a coffee mug out of paper mache and then pour warm coffee into it. It'll dissolve and fall apart. So this is why they test. She's like, something, my intuition is telling me something is off with this man. I'm going to test. I'm going to poke. I'm going to resist. And then he's going to get all, oh, this resistant testing, shit testing bitch. She doesn't respect me. Yeah, that may be true because she's sensing something. Her intuition is like, I don't know. There's something off about him. And he's like, how dare you question me? I'm the man. How dare you? No. Of course she is. Her own safety is primary, her primary focus. Of course she's going to question that which seems uncertain. She cannot be herself within uncertainty. This is why, like those two, provision and protection. Like, if you just kind of like distill that down to the most basic sense of what those things offer, which is certainty. That's all it is. It's just a sense of certainty. So that she can become more fluid. Now, and I tell you, man, like girls are so beautiful when they become liquid. They're so much fun and so beautiful at that point. Like, I don't know what the fuck guys are talking about. Like all this like red pill shit. Or they're like full of deceit. They're full of poison. They're deceptive. They use you and things like that. No, they use uncertain males. Some of them. Or they kind of stick around and hope over time that maybe that you will become more dense, right? Because she likes you. You know, it's a good guy. Like, oh, I just really hope that he becomes, right? But what did I read at the beginning, right? It's not, right? I said a woman does not surrender to personality. She doesn't surrender to promises. She doesn't surrender to the idea of who you might become in 6 months. She surrenders to the man she senses in front of her now. Because emotions are now. Nervous system is now. Makes sense? And if that's sensing something that's off, can you blame her? Well, of course you can. Because that's what guys do when they don't understand. When they don't understand that the woman is just a reflection. That's all she is. She's just this reflection. And women are a microcosm of the world. So a lot of times if you're out of alignment, if you're fuzzy, if you're out of focus, if you're not clearly defined, if you're full of self-doubt and fear and anger and suppression, how do you think the world is going to respond to you? It's probably going to bypass you because you're just less defined. How can you make a mark? How can you be grounded if your feet are out of focus? How? Oh, but you want the world to like slow down and, kind of like hold you up. The world has no feelings for you. Women have no feelings for you. It's not about that. They can develop them, but their feelings for you don't solidify and change and create the submission. A woman can love you and submit. A woman can love you and not submit. It's not part of submission, because submission has to do with her nervous system. Her nervous system and her the parasympathetic system. the parasympathetic nervous system, which is a division of the autonomic nervous system that promotes the body's rest and digest state, counteracting the flight or fight response of the sympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is flight or fight. The parasympathetic system is the rest and digest. Okay, so it helps maintain daily functions such as resting heart rate, digestion, metabolism, by slowing the heart rate, relaxing muscles, and increasing digestive juices. So when you're uncertain, right, her sympathetic nervous system gets activated. When you're calm, grounded, you are actual container, that's when her parasympathetic nervous system responds. It turns on, right? We can't like really control how our nervous system is, right? It just reacts, right? That's the beginnings of submission. Okay, it starts in the body, right? It starts in the body, and then from there, it can reach up and start engaging her emotions. It can reach in and start engaging her soul, right? And this is where her body starts telling her, hey, it's okay, you can relax. It's all right, you don't have to hold on to your narratives. It's okay, you don't have to hold on to your pain and your fear and your beliefs, your perceptions. Your body is saying, you can relax. It's okay. And look, he's being consistent in such a way that it's not just this one-off thing where your parasympathetic nervous system turns on. It's getting turned on repeatedly so that you can rest and digest. And you become softer. So the mind is like, okay, I'm going to just kind of release my grip a little bit. I'm going to slow down the hamster wheel. Okay, my heart is going to open a little bit more. My soul is going to feel a little bit more energized and a little freer. Okay? All starting with the nervous system, with the consistency of it being activated in a certain way. And then all becomes wrapped up together. They all kind of harmonize together. So it starts with the nervous system and then moves into the mind, emotions, and soul. And that's when, when they kind of all harmonize in one unified state, that's when she becomes softened. She becomes full liquid at that point. But now this is the largest amount of responsibility for you. Because if you want her to maintain that state, her state of freedom, you have to be the container that can withstand that. Now, maybe withstand is the wrong word, but the container that can hold that. Okay, because withstand implies that there's some sort of difficulty in it. There's not. But to be able to hold it for extended periods of time, years, in a state of comfort on your part. Okay? But so you can see, I really hope that, this episode has kind of brought some truth to light. Yeah, I know it's not easy. It's not simple. Me explaining some of these things, it just makes things sound complicated. I'd be like, damn, dude, I just want a girlfriend. But that's just your neediness and uncertainty talking. There's really no truth there. The truth is coming from, your created tunnels of narrative that are attached to your identity. Just all that shit. It's just not real. You are not real. The you that you think you are, the you that's listening right now, is not real. And that's the part of you that wants the girlfriend. I don't want a girlfriend. I don't want a wife. It's not a desire or need in that way. Not anymore. It's just something that I can create if I want. And then comes the question, well, why? Why would I want to create this in my life? What's the benefit? Okay. Now I know the benefit for me because I'm a creative individual. In order for me to create, I need a surface by which to create, or on which to create. So I need the canvas. I need the lump of clay. I enjoy the process of creating within another person. It's just something I enjoy. I like it. I like watching light bulbs turn on in people. I like watching people have realizations about terrible shit. You know, maybe that's my sadism talking. But yeah, I like it when people come to uncomfortable truths within themselves. And then they can move past them with brightness and lightness by actually embracing their darkness. More ironies. You become brighter the more of your darkness you embrace. Weird, huh? But it's true. You don't become brighter by becoming all like sunshiny and rainbows and, you know, like a bumper sticker. Or like one of those, makes you think of those unicorn Pegasus 3-ring binders jumping through waves. Like, no, that's not how you become light, by like manufacturing your lightness. You become light by embracing your darkness. You know, that's why there's that little dot on each side of the yin yang. You have to embrace that little bit from the other side. And yeah, but this is what brings you what brings you there. This is how you arrive. You know, but like once you're there, like I no longer really care for having a girlfriend, care for having a submissive, care for having a wife. It's not, yeah, the caring for part is just no longer there. But it's like I understand myself well. So when I understand that I enjoy the creative process of getting my fingers into somebody, like getting my fingers into their mind, into their heart, and, you know, like a massage therapist, a chiropractor mixed with a sculptor and a painter and a therapist, creating something different and new that's beautiful, that can look at itself and say, I'm beautiful. And say, yes, you are. Like, get on your knees so I can spit in your face. Oh, man. The contradictions. The contradictions and ironies. But, yeah, I kid. It's not really about that. But seriously, it becomes about what you really want to create, you know? So if you want to really have a woman in your life, I think it's a good idea to understand why. Well, what's the fucking point? What is she there for? You know, if it's just like sexual gratification, well, then that can be achieved in much easier means, right? You don't even need to be a player or anything like that. Like, I mean, just like go to Las Vegas, right? Prostitution's legal there. If you don't like their system, go to, what is it? Amsterdam or Prague. I believe there they have, it's like a real job. Like there's insurance, like there has to be like regular testing. I think like the girls, they have like dental plans, medical plans. They have to pay taxes. Like it's like a real legit job that's protected, you know, just like every other job is protected. And, you know, there's certain protections that we have as workers. And so, yeah, just go there, do that sort of thing, right? If it's just sex, but is it really? If you're honest with yourself, right? If you lay a brick of honesty on your pathway, you will admit that it's not about sex. That's really not what you're after, is it? What are you really after? That's what you need to answer. Be honest with yourself of like why you want the sex of women. And if you go in there, you're going to start peeling away layers of that onion and think, oh, maybe it's like 1 or 2. You'll get to like 12, 15, and you're like, fuck. This is not what I bargained for. This is really not the... But once you're in it, you're in it. You start peeling off those layers and you start realizing that you, even just your simple desire for sex, is deeper than what you thought it was, which is a good thing. Because this is the pathway to truth. You have to take away the things that you think are real. Oh, I just want some pussy because it feels good and blah. But sure, but feels good to what? Just your dick? You sure? You sure about that? I think if most guys really did some investigating, reflection, writing, talking to themselves, maybe like in a recorder or something like that, go back, review every couple of weeks or something like that, really start just over time, nothing crazy. You don't want to go like gung-ho, but just over time, just investigate, right? Without judgment, try to come at this as clearly and plainly as possible. And you're going to be like, dang, I really had these other motivations when it came to women. I had these other motivations when it came to sex. I was not actually having sex for sex. Because if it really was about that, then I would have just gotten a hooker. Take a little trip to Vegas or take a longer trip out to Amsterdam and just did that. But there's something in you that just can't accept that, huh? And create a narrative. Oh, well, losers do that. No, I mean, some losers do. And some guys who just want pussy, and that's it. Because there's no emotions involved. The avoidance is because of the emotions, right? Because the guys, they're like, yeah, I want pussy, but I want it genuine. I want it to come from a woman who actually wants me. Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Why do you want a woman to want you? What do you get out of that? Why do you want a woman to want you? Where did that story come from? Because it is a story. It is a narrative. So where did you come up with that? And what does it do for you? These are important things to ask yourself. Well, I don't want to go and do all that. Okay, well then don't get pissed off when your reflection is blurry. When you can tell that she just doesn't fully, and I mean with her complete being, trust you. Don't complain. Don't complain when you can tell she's only kneeling from her body and not from her soul. Don't complain when you can tell that she's reserving part of herself. Don't complain. Accept what is. Accept what you've created. I mean, at least do that. But men, we do not complain. We accept the bed that we've made, and we sleep in it. So I could say that those bricks on the path, they're made of honesty, but they're also made of acceptance. Accepting of what is. And that's really what comes about. And then, just as my client, like as you become more honest with yourself, you start trusting, like, yeah, I'm going to lay the fucking brick in. It's done. No doubting or second guessing of its placement or whatever. Just fucking do it. And you're honest, okay? Letting go of the fear. Letting go of your anxiety. Letting go of the inner dialogues. Right? Like my client, he is just making these big steps. Before, he was like taking these little steps, okay? Still in the right direction, but he's being too cautious, okay? And finally, he's like, you know what? He let it sigh, which I tell you guys is really important to do. All right? Sigh. Lets out tension, okay? He starts being honest, trusting in his honesty, okay? Accepting the things that are, and not pushing against, not resisting, not being upset or whatever. Now he's taking actual strides. He's trusting himself. And the discomfort and the fear is just melting away. With every confident step that he does within himself, about like, say, how he's conducting himself with this woman and how he's communicating with her, he's just going. Now, he is in a fantastic position. I'll give him that, okay? This girl is just really, really into him. She really loves him, okay? So that means she's willing to test. Or I'm sorry, she's willing to be patient with him, all right? And the interesting thing is that he wanted to give it up, because as his awareness grew, he realized he's not the man that she should be following. And he's like, fuck, like I am really messed up. Like the clarity of himself came into view. And he's like, damn, like I don't think she should be following me. And not only that, she was, I think she had to like move away for school, like maybe a couple or a few hours away, like grad program, I think. And he was like, well, I can't handle this, the physical desire and all that stuff. And I was like, no, lean into it, right? Lean into these difficulties, because it's just showing you more truth of yourself. Whereas before he had like sex on tap. It was just right there. And now, because of the distance, it's like now he has to look at his lust. It's like, why am I so this way? Well, you start looking at the layers. It's like, oh man, there's that neediness. Oh, but let's not stop there. Let's peel away the neediness. Let's see where that came from. Get to understand the actual lay of the land. And he was able to grow from this. Once you get to the actual bottom of the seafloor. And so now he's been able to really cultivate himself, and his communication has been changing. He's actually making strides, making confident steps, and she's feeling that certainty and just falling right into it, right into that shit. Granted, I said he's gotten an advantage in the sense that she already loves and trusts him, and he explained to her that, listen, I'm not in the right place. I have work to do. And, I've got a mentor. He's helping me with these things, but it's not going to be immediate. But I needed you to know, like, this is where I am. And she's like, I'm in it. Like, I'm here. I'm not just like bouncing because you're not perfect. So he's quite fortunate. Okay. Now he just can't fuck it up. Right. And an easy way, something that I need to talk to him about, unless he's listening right now, is once things start rolling in the right direction, it's easy to lose sight, and it's easy to get ham-fisted with things. It is. It's quite easy. And you start like trusting yourself a little too much, right? And not being mindful of your thoughts, your words, and your actions. And this is how it can be. You can kind of fuck things up. You can fumble it by being a little overconfident and too relaxed in your new confidence. But so it's important to kind of always step back. Okay, like if you see if you ever watch a painter, they'll get up into the canvas and they're working on some like tight details, and then they'll kind of step back, right? They'll step back a couple paces to get a full view of what they're working on, so that they can kind of have this like macro, micro, and they'll do this constantly through the process and the development of that painting. All right, in and out, constantly until it's done. Okay, and that's what they're doing. So they'll step back and be like, okay, these different areas that I'm working on, is this all kind of coming together as a single, as like a single unit? And so you kind of have to do that amongst your leadership as well. You have to do this with your leadership as well. Can't get so caught up in the details that that you lose sight of the larger picture. Okay? Cool. So we're edging up on almost 2 hours, right? And I fear that if I continue, I'm going to just start repeating myself. I think I made the points very clear. That women are a mirror. They reflect your state, your current state. It's beneficial to have a girl who's already feeling strongly about you, who's already has a high level of interest in you. That is very beneficial, okay? But not ultimately necessary. Excuse me. But just know that she is a reflection regardless. And if your reflection is out of focus, if it's disjointed, if it's out of alignment, then more likely than not, almost 100% of the time, she will reflect all of that back at you. Not directly, but in the way it is filtered through a woman. And that's just the way it goes. So if any of this resonated with you, I encourage you to go over to the website, thedominance.academy.com. Check out the things that I've got going on there. There's call packages, free consultations, there's free PDFs, books, and a new tutorial section where I take very simple, where I take one concept and just focus on that. Because I know like in my shows here, I tend to meander and kind of like fracture off into other related areas. And in these lessons, in these tutorials, we just focus on one specific skill. All right. And it's got a very low, easy barrier of entry to these things, so they're not charged through the roof. So grab them up. And every week, I was sick for the last couple days, so I kind of got screwed up on my progress. But every week I'll be adding new material to this, like 1 or 2 programs to the tutorials, and they're going to cover 3 ranges of like low tier, middle tier, and higher tier in terms of like complexity and or like advancement or sophistication. All right. So for example, like the first one's going to be like about mindset, nice guy syndrome, identity, things along those lines. And then as you go along, you get to the middle tier and the advanced tiers. Middle tier is just probably more going to be about like leadership and refinement and defining. And then the advanced is like real creation, like putting things out, right? So that where you can actually start wielding the woman, start wielding her mind, wielding her body, wielding her soul, wielding her emotions, to then becoming the sculptor, right? So every week I'll be putting new ones out there. Also, last announcement, I finally finished writing up the actually, that's a lie. I'm not finally finished. I'm almost finished with my books. Okay, so you hear me talking about like, or I say like, I'll say a quote and then I'll mention the Iron Litany, chapter 3, verses 7. Like that's from a series of books. The Iron Litany is one of them. And they're supposed to read as like these ancient manuscripts that, have like deep wisdom around dominance and submission. And so there's going to be, say, 5 smaller books and then 2 larger books. And those 2 larger books are like, imagine the wisdom coming from like an ancient, powerful, like submissive queen type entity. Okay. Where she's like this ancient wisdom, right? Ancient dark feminine wisdom. And then the other book is going to be of Dom King ancient wisdom from that end. So those 2 books are going to be a lot thicker. So the submissive one is finished, and I'm like maybe a third of the way through on the one for the Doms. And so once that's done, then all the books will be finished, and I think I'm going to put them through print on demand. So I have to then design all of the books with their artwork and the layout and all that stuff, but they will be ready for print on demand. And then once those pick up steam and the popularity has spread, the desire has increased, I'm going to do limited editions of probably putting them all together in like maybe like 1 large book or maybe 2 large books, depending on how many pages it turns out being. And they'll be leather bound, right? So leather bound with some embossing and things like that, and just have these limited leather book editions. So I think that'd be really cool, like on like natural parchment and that sort of thing. That's really what I would like to see these as. And basically like making like my own Bible of sorts, right? My own manuscripts for, well, I guess like the church or religion of the core self. But there's no really organization around it. It's just the learning. Yes. Thank you, Guns. Yeah, don't wait for 26. Okay. If any of this stuff made sense to you and it seems like something that you would like guidance on, by all means, just go to the website or grab the link for the free consultation. It's a big button in the top right of the main screen or the landing page, and just book yourself a call. Okay. You can't go wrong. There's nothing to it except about 30 to 40 minutes of your time, and you might find that it's something that you need. Okay. But know that nothing will really work until you're at the place where you're like, fuck, I need help. Otherwise you're going to spin your wheels in the mud, and that's really just how it works. So don't do anything unless you're ready. Don't waste your time. Don't waste my time. But know that your body will tell you when you're ready. Your nervous system, remember I was saying, like that's the thing that responds. That lets you know. So like, are you walking around with anxiousness? Like, or tension inside you? Right? That's your body telling you there's something wrong. All right? So if you want to talk about it, get in touch. Okay? All right. I'm getting out of here. You guys, thank you so much for joining me on this live. I appreciate it very much. And thank you for those who are watching on the replay. I appreciate you as well. So until next time, have yourself a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.